name is Mark Coakley. I'm born and raised in Hamilton, west end of Hamilton. I've had an interest in environmental issues from a very early age. My father was a geologist, so he kind of gave me a sort of scientific way of looking at the world. I left Hamilton for around 10 years to go to school. I ended up getting a law degree, becoming a lawyer, and then coming back to Hamilton to practice law. That was, I believe, I was called to the bar in '98, and I was living in downtown Hamilton at that time. Long-term interest in environmental issues. Used to work for Greenpeace. I've been involved in some environmental issues before the Red Hill Creek issues. Also social justice type issues. When I lived in Ottawa, I served in the riding executive for the NDP for a couple of years. And so I've always been politically active, often through journalism, but sometimes through activism, like direct protests and things like that. Well, I mentioned working for Greenpeace. I was not a volunteer, I was actually working, going door to door, but going door after door, trying to convince people to give money for environmental issues. Wow, that is a great training, because 99% of the people aren't that receptive, but you can, by understanding possibly what they're interested in, what they're not interested in, you can make a pitch to them, which you could hit the aspects of environmentalism that they could relate to. And so that was good training for that. When I was going to university in Toronto, I wrote for the school newspapers, and many of my articles were about environmental issues. And I've always been an outdoorsy person too. I like to camp and hike and things like that, and fish. And so that's my background. As I mentioned, I was with the NDP. I'm not anymore, but I was in the 90s. I was with the NDP, quite active in Ottawa. And then I was uprooted from Ottawa, came back to Hamilton, and I have friends in Hamilton, but I didn't have any sort of activism network or anything like that, or anything to do really other than my job and my personal life. And I was living in an apartment downtown on McNabb Street, and I remember seeing in the newspaper, I'm trying to remember whether it was a physical newspaper or the internet. That was around the time when I started transitioning from one to the other. I think it was a physical newspaper. I started hearing about Don McLean and the Friends of the Red Hill Valley. At the time, I had the impression that there was established group that had been going on for 15, 20, 25 years. I found out later that they'd only been around for a few years, but they seemed like such a solid part of the community. You saw them in the newspaper, and I sent a letter or something to them saying I wanted to get involved, and I didn't hear a response from them. And I know now that these things happen very often in activist organizations. It's not a snub or anything like that, but not having heard back from them, I said, okay, well, I want to get involved in other ways.